This is on the agenda on 100.4 FM. Now, efforts are being made to hold Israeli occupation soldiers to account for their crimes in the besieged Gaza Strip. The Hind Rajab Foundation has lodged a criminal complaint with the International Criminal Court against 1,000 Israeli soldiers for war crimes. Now, the US-backed Israeli entity is waging a genocidal aggression on the Palestinian people for more than a year now. Over 43,000 people have been butchered and more than 102,000 other people injured since October 7th. People are also being starved and denied basic rights, including healthcare, due to the siege. For more on this case, we're joined by Dutch lawyer and legal representative for the Hind Rajab Foundation and March 30th movement, and that's Haroon Raza. Assalamu alaikum and welcome.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thanks for having me.
Haroon, let's look at this complaint. It's against 1,000 Israeli soldiers. What are you charging them with?
We are charging them with being accomplices to and having committed genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. And what we've been doing is we've chronologically logged everything that has happened since the 7th of October regarding, for example, attacks on hospitals, attacks on mosques, starvation, and other topics, other subjects. We've made a list of that with underlying videographic and photographic evidence in general. And along with that, we've used the social media posts of these criminals, of these war criminals, against them. Because what they've been doing is, as you've seen on Al Jazeera, via other networks, and in fact, if you have Instagram or X or Twitter or TikTok, you can see it yourself. They've been posting everything themselves. So what they do is they blow up a mosque, for example, or a school or buildings, and they're standing in front of that laughing. Or they are chronologically looking at the timeline. They're at, for example, the Al-Shifa Medical Complex, the hospital, just about when mass graves were found there, etc., etc. So we've been using those pieces of evidence, photos, videos, and even stories as evidence against themselves.
And I'm just thinking, of course, of the amount of Israeli crimes in Gaza over the past year. And just how do you narrow it down in terms of submitting this case? How did you filter through all of these violations in order to put this case together?
Yeah, so the Hind Rajab Foundation and March 30th movement have a team of investigators on this who are working tirelessly, actually around the clock, looking at social media, looking at everything that is posted by the journalists, they're brave journalists, they are brothers and sisters there, but also the soldiers. And as soon as they find these posts, they look at it historically. So they check it out, looking at where were these soldiers, what have they been doing, and they compile a file. And those files have now been sent with the complaint, which is more than, I think, 400 pages, to the ICC. But we've also sent it to about 9 other countries via the embassies in The Hague, and asked those countries to use this evidence, put those 1,000 soldiers on the national and international arrest warrant list, or the Interpol list.
And just on that, I'm just thinking about the crimes as I mentioned. What specific crimes, if you could maybe give us some examples of the crimes that have been highlighted and submitted to the ICC?
Sure. Let me give you one example. And we've already lodged a complaint, I think, this summer in France at the national level, and we've sent a complaint to the ICC against the same person. You had a very famous post on Insta, and I think it was on X as well, of an French-Israeli dual national soldier who had Palestinians tied up and blindfolded, and was sent a video to his cousin, who's also in the IDF, whilst saying, when we were interrogating him, excuse my language, he urinated in his pants, and we beat him, and we did this and did that. That's a very concrete example. So we already lodged a complaint via our French department at the French national level, and we've used the same evidence in this case, alleging torture and war crimes. So that's one very concrete example. Another example is a Dutch binational, so dual Israeli and Dutch national, who was active in Gaza and probably still is active in Gaza, and he posts pictures and videos of himself while he's burning a house. And what he then does is, before that, I think, he puts graffiti or sprays graffiti or writes graffiti on the wall of the house with his full name. And he publishes that on his Instagram account. So these are, I'm laughing because this is how silly the world is in which we're living these days. These guys are doing this
Mm.
without being held accountable at any level. But these are some concrete examples.
Mm. Now, and these are, of course, the soldiers that are on the ground in Gaza. Are there
Mhm.
any other high-ranking Israeli military officials that are also part of this case?
Yes, because what we've done is we have privates, let's say. If you
Mm.
look at the rank, sergeants, but we have it up to generals, because many of these generals have, of course, as we've seen on social media, but also on the news and via other media outlets, have been spouting genocidal language,
Mm.
which then empowers these lower rank soldiers to commit these war crimes and these crimes against humanity and this genocide, because they feel empowered by these higher ranking generals, because what they're actually in effect saying is, do what you want to do, you won't be held accountable in Israel anyway.
Mm.
So that's how we've built up the individual cases against those higher ranking generals, air marshals, etc.
Mm. So you've now lodged this criminal complaint with the ICC. Why this specific court, and also just considering the track record of the ICC when it comes to the Israeli entity, why specifically the ICC?
Um, One of the main reasons is we've been lodging complaints since December 2023. And I've personally been building cases since 2008,
Okay.
so long before this. And what you see is generally, and I've been lodging complaints at the Dutch national level and the ICC. Both the national levels and the ICC are slow because of Zionism in this country, but also Zionism internationally.
Mm.
And they're not really eager to do much, if anything. And when they do something, as Karim Khan tried to do, you suddenly see them using delaying tactics. I mean, we know right now that there still haven't been arrest warrants issued, or at least confirmed by the chamber of the IC, so by the judiciary, by the judges there.
Mm.
And we also know that Karim Khan now is being seen in another light, because suddenly, whilst this is pending, some harassment complaints suddenly come up. So we knew and we know that this is a very slow process.
Mm.
The national level, we already lodged some complaints in which the Dutch government, Dutch prosecutor's office directly says, look, they're Israeli soldiers. We're not going to conduct our own investigation. We don't really care. This is not how it's worded, but this is the gist of it.
Mm.
The ICC in the coming year or 2 years will do nothing with this information, as we all know. However, the other thing which will happen is, and South Africa is one of the countries who we sent all this information to,
Mm.
at the national levels, these binationals, because many of them are binationals, so the Israeli and let's say French nationality, South African nationality, Dutch nationality, of course, US nationality,
Mm.
Australian nationality, etc. These countries will move earlier than the ICC does. And this is the reason, excuse me, we've sent it to the ICC, but also we've sent it at the same time to these 9 countries, and we'll be sending it to more countries, inshallah, very soon, to make sure that if the ICC doesn't do anything within 1 or 2 years, these countries will have an obligation to do something. Also looking at the ICJ ruling of July and other rulings from international bodies.
Mm.
That's why we've actually chose a two-tier approach in publishing this. And the countries who we've sent these lists to, at least some of them, I think, will be very eager to put these guys and ladies, by the way, or women,
Mm.
on an arrest warrant list. So knowing full well that this is something which will not be done within 6 months to a year. We know, I mean, I know that you guys know that it's something that it might take 5 or 10 or 20 years, inshallah. But at the end of the day, these people will be held accountable, either at the ICC level or at the national level, inshallah.
Has the ICC received any, or have you received rather, any acknowledgement from the ICC with regards to this complaint?
What ICC does is you get a digital not even acceptance but
Mm.
confirmation that they've received, and that's it. And then you don't hear anything for a long time. And that's their track record on Palestine. I mean, we all full well know that they've been conducting investigations since, what was it, 2016, into Palestine, into Palestine.
Mm.
And we got the first arrest warrants this year. But we know that it's a very slow and painful process.
Mm.
However, uh, it does create other opportunities at the national levels. Just for your information, because you guys are from South Africa, we've already, or at least the March 30th movement has already, I think 5 months ago, sent 75 profiles of South African and Israeli dual nationals who were active in Gaza. So we are sending much more information to the national courts, hoping that either the national courts or the ICC will do something. And because of the issue of the fact that the ICC will not do anything if national courts are doing something, I really hope some national courts, because of the detail of this complaint, will start doing something. And we know South Africa has been at the forefront of this fight, and we know that they are doing a lot, as well as lawyers in South Africa, alhamdulillah.
Indeed, and I mean it's such a long battle, and as you say, you're not expecting any movement very soon. But it's also important, as you say. I mean, you've been working on these kinds of cases since 2008. What is the importance of building this kind of case, this history of genocide, of occupation against the Israeli entity?
Well, very simply, as you know, and as we've all seen, alhamdulillah, the narrative is changing. Zionism is, inshallah, on its last legs. Allahu alim. Allah, but inshallah. And this process in general, especially if you're faced with a behemoth like Zionism or Zionists or the Zionist entity, is going to be slow. But you have to keep at it, because it also raises awareness, and it makes sure that people on the ground in South Africa, in the Netherlands, in England, in France, etc., who live nearby these criminals, because these guys and girls are going to come back to their countries because they can live here and in Israel, that they're aware that, look, my neighbor is an IDF criminal, or the woman across the street participated in the genocide. And people become active, not in a violent way, just to be clear, but through grassroots activism. And that's happening in the Netherlands right now, because we have many IDF soldiers who have left from the Netherlands and who are very proud of what they're doing and share TikTok videos, etc. They now understand that they will be held accountable, if not legally, at least socially. People will look at them and say, look, you're working in hospital, for example, but you're an IDF soldier. And this is happening right now in the Netherlands. And I'm representing a lot of pro-Palestinian activists in these communities who have stood up and said, we have to do something about this, and we won't accept these people coming back, being child killers, being murderers, being people who starve other people, who just come back and live their lives. It's not going to happen legally. And they either start legal proceedings here, or they protest, or they do other things. And very slowly you see the tide turning in accepting Zionism. For the first time ever, people who weren't aware of the Palestinian issue, who were not aware of the occupation since 1948. I'm not even going to talk about 67. I'm talking about the first borders. Like, those people are waking up and saying, oh, but this is strange that my government is accepting and supporting Zionism. I have to do something about that. So this is also, I think, these legal complaints and these legal challenges do contribute to getting awareness across and getting the ummah awake first, and also the rest of society, inshallah.
Haroon, shukran so much for your time and the tireless work that you are engaged in lodging this complaint at the International Criminal Court. Haroon Raza is a Dutch lawyer and legal representative for the Hind Rajab Foundation and March 30th movement. Also quite interesting there, and we've seen it throughout, even in South Africa's case to the ICJ, that it's these Israeli soldiers that are themselves incriminating themselves on what they're actually doing in Gaza, documenting this. And this footage has been used by the likes of South Africa's legal team, as well as that of the Hind Rajab Foundation, as well as the March 30th movement. And now Haroon Raza now taking that complaint to the ICC, that of matter of 1,000 Israeli soldiers, including generals, in terms of their role and what they have been doing in committing these war crimes in Gaza.